All right, the last video here is going to be about blood typing. So ABO blood typing. All right, so on our red blood cells, our erythrocytes, which look a little bit like this. So on our erythrocytes, in fact, on all of our body cells, we have little things that kind of stick off of them. They're like little markers. And these markers are called antigens. And an antigen is anything that can initiate an immune response. So on our red blood cells, we have specific antigens that kind of say what type of blood we are. And this red, come on. Let me make this little cell red since we're talking about red blood cells here. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to draw 4 blood cells. And our blood cells have these antigens on them. And some of us have one type of antigen that we call the A antigen. So A. So if you have the A antigen on your blood cells, you are type A. You've got type A blood because you have A antigens on your blood cells. If you have B antigens on your blood cells, so these are B's, then you're a type B blood. Okay? If you have B antigens and A antigens on your blood cell, then you are going to be type AB blood. If you don't have any antigens on your blood cells, then you are type O. Okay, so these blood cells, or when you have the type blood that you have, you may have antibodies for the opposite blood. So if you have type A blood, then you have antibodies for B. Okay, because if you get type B blood and you're a type A, then these anti-Bs are going to attack that type B blood because it's not you. All right, if you're a type B, then you have anti-A. So you have antibodies for A. If you have type AB, do you have any antibodies? No. Because if you had antibodies for either one, it would attack your blood because you have both types of antigen on your blood cells. Type O's don't have any antigens, so they actually have both. Oh, I cannot get this thing to work right. So they have anti-B and they have anti-A as well. So they have antibodies for both. So if they get type A blood, they're going to reject it. If they get type B blood, they're going to reject it. They're always going to have type O. So there is another marker that some people do have as well, and we call that the RH factor. All right, and you're either RH positive or you're RH negative. You either have it, so you either have the thing or you don't have it. So if you have it, you're positive, so this person would be A positive. If they don't have it, they're A negative. If this guy has it, they're B positive. If they don't have it, they're B negative, and so on down the line. All right. Antibodies, if you have the RH factor, okay, you're not going to have antibodies against it. So you're not going to have anti-D antibodies, okay? And the RH factor is called D. So it's like sort of like type D. So if you have antibodies against RH factor, you have anti-Ds, okay? So antibodies look a lot like little Ys. So let me show you. So we have an anti-A. It looks kind of like that. So this is the little binding site, and this antibody will bind onto that antigen. Okay, so here's anti-A. And we'll make an anti-B. Anti-B antibodies. So these antibodies are of a specific type. These ABO antibodies are IgM antibodies. And the body makes these at birth, or by the time you get born. And they're big. Think huge. All right? So they're too big to cross the placenta. Okay? The IgD antibodies, where did we do IgD? Okay, IgD antibodies, anti-Ds, anti-D antibodies. These are not IgM flavored antibodies. These are IgG antibodies, and we'll talk more about that later when we get to the immune system, but just know that they're a different type of antibody than the ABO antibodies. So these IgG antibodies are smaller. So they do cross the placenta. Okay, so we'll talk a little more about that when we get to the end of this chapter, but this has to do with, women who have babies, and if they have an Rh positive baby, they could reject that baby, and their body could wage an immune war against it. So we'll talk about that. But this is the ABO blood typing. Okay, so A, B, and O. The AB type, just so you know, the AB type is the universal recipient. So they can pretty much get blood from anybody. Type O is the universal donor. So they can give to anybody, but they can only get from type O. All right, so that's the end of that, and we will talk more about that in class. And that's it for this chapter.